Right, thank you, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Testing Peers podcast. My name is Chris Armstrong, and today I am joined by the one and only David Maynard,
Hello.
the also one and only Russell Cracksford,
One and only.
and the one we wish there were more of, Shey Crompton.
I'm back.
Today we're going to be speaking about transformations. Interesting topics again. But before we dive into that and even some banter, we have a sponsor message from our sponsors, Enfocus. Enfocus are a UK-based software testing company. They've been supporting businesses for 24 years by providing services that include burst resource, accelerated test automation, performance testing, and fully managed testing services. In 2021, they launched a test automation academy to create amazing testers, and they've now created jobs for 48 people in our industry in just under 3 years. I think that's pretty awesome. We need more entryways for new folks into the industry, so thank you, Enfocus. If you want to know more, go to enfocus.co.uk or email them info@enfocus.co.uk, and there will be links in the show notes. Now, banter with Shey.
All right. Having not been on for a while, put on the spot, and I've been getting back into sports recently. So I was wondering, if you could be a professional in any sport, what sport would that be? I mean, I know some of you have history. I know some of you do a little bit of extracurricular sporting action.
There's a lot to take in when you think about sport, because there's like, do you want fame and fortune? Do you want to be an Olympian? Do you want a long or a short career? Many things, Shay. But I'm going to just lean into what I enjoy doing most, which is tennis. So if I could do that, tennis would be my thing.
Very cool.
I think I would have gone back to my youth and gone swimming. I love swimming. I really enjoy it. And when I have a gap from swimming and then go back to it, I realise how much I've missed it. So yeah, for me, swimming would be it.
I'm with Chris and confused with all the different sort of balancing acts between how hard I have to train, how much career length there is for it, how little or much fame there is, and how much money there is in it.
I think you're overthinking it, to be honest.
I know, but I am an overthinker.
What would you be a professional in? What would be your main sport?
Basketball, because I could be any of the above, so I could be unknown in the UK or famous in America, depending on how well my career went.
I mean, given the fact that, until I met you, I didn't realize you were actually very tall. I think now knowing that would be a good option. You'd barely have to jump to slam dunk.
Just lucky because I can't jump.
I'm not going to go to that movie. For me, it's a little bit of a busman's holiday. I absolutely adore golf. I've played it all my life since, about the age of 4. If I could play one thing professionally or do one thing professionally in a sporting sense, it would be golf. I would ruin a good walk every day of my life until the end of my life. It would be great.
A 19th hole, though, isn't it, as well?
Yes, and those who know me know where I'll be.
So I guess we've got to talk now about things.
Tradition on the podcast.
Yeah.
Silence doesn't get rated very highly.
Transformations, evolutions, changes. What are they? What are our opinions? Shay, you brought this up originally. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's an interesting topic that's close to my heart at the moment, but has been for many years in my career, is transformation within the corporate space. When I became a consultant many years ago, I used to be sort of parachuted into organizations where they were going, "It's all screwed. We tried transformation. It's not working. Help me out." And I'd come in with my testing mindset and stand side by side with another consultant or whatever, and we'd steady the ship. We transform them, going way back when, from crappy waterfall to less crappy waterfall, or as we called it then, agile. And that would be good. And organizations have flourished since. Fast forward quite a few years, 10, 15 years on, I'm still in that space, but I'm now in an enterprise space, and we're embarking on some form of transformation at the moment. When this goes out, many people will know how much of a transformation we're doing in the organization I'm in, and it's pretty huge. And with that comes many things within the workplace. It is uncomfortable. It is hefty change. It takes a long time. It can be done well and it can be done badly. I've seen both. So yeah, It's I have some stories, I have some scars. What about you guys?
Ditto. Like you have kind of done the consultancy space as well as kind of the corporate space and the enterprise space. And transformation is a word that kind of makes me feel slightly sick on the inside, if I'm honest
Yeah.
with you, just because I've seen the term used. It's used as a buzzword more than it is used with any understanding of what they're trying to transform from what to what. I've seen people that have had a clearer idea of what their goal was. Again, it all comes down to articulating it. It's very easy to get confused as organizations, or it's very easy that one part of an organization. So let's say a testing transformation from a end-to-end UI only tested kind of model to a more shift left model and all the rest of it. It can happen in silos, it can happen broadly. It's scarred me, it's helped me, it's done all the above. It's been a roller coaster.
I wonder, what is one of the standout things? If I say we're going to transform this organization, Russell, what is the standout thing that is either we have to get this right straight away, or we have to not do this from the start? What is there something that jumps into your mind from that?
It always comes down to engagement for me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling somebody to change, it just fails straight away. I think you're pretty much guaranteed failure. But if you can actually get engagement into what you're changing, why you're changing it, how it might help them, the individual that's changing, but also maybe to them to see their customers, the impact to them.
Yeah.
And obviously in the testing space, that's, how you could see automation making you be able to focus on exploratory or letting you be able to do other things, adding value in different ways. Things like that. If you could actually kind of sell it, and I don't mean sell it in the kind of commercial sense, but sell it to the people, not to the budget holder, shall we say, you can actually see a greater chance of success. If it is just a token effort, it is a idea, a management initiative, and you can't articulate it to the people on the floor, the value it will add. That's where I kind of see a high chances of failure, or failure is probably not the right word for it. High chance of friction, I think it's probably a better word for it. It doesn't always fail. It generally will move you along. It's just what cost, what sort of happiness, etc., etc.
Yeah, I guess with the word friction, you could picture, particularly in the enterprise space, it's continental drift, tectonic plates meeting, and that amount of friction causes earthquakes, tsunamis, and much consternation. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with the engagement thing.
I was going to also add that I think transformation needs to have a reason. You shouldn't transform just for transformation's sake, as it were. And I think that goes into this sort of communication and bringing people along and getting people engaged. Because unless you have people's buy-in and they understand why it's happening, it can cause that friction. It can cause that misunderstanding of why exactly are we putting this effort into doing something that I don't believe in, or I don't understand why we're doing it. Because it can cost money. It does cost a lot of time in order to transform. And unless you understand and have that buy-in, it can be very difficult for you to justify the costs, the effort in order to make that transformation a success or make that change.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, a little bit of background to why this is in my mind. It's as I said, it's something I've lived. I've got a little bit of a conference talk that I'm trying to work on, and have been for a while. And one of the big things around it is that kind of it costs a lot of money, an obscene amount of money for an enterprise to make a major shift. One of the best things to picture, perhaps, is if we all remember the Ever Given when it was stuck in the Suez Canal, right? It's stuck in its ways. And how much effort did it take to get that just to turn into the right direction? It took many, many hours of effort, many, many people, many, many different apparatus, many, many different gnashing of teeth. It's very similar to get an enterprise or an organization to change. And then that's the macro. If you filter down a bit to where Russell was speaking earlier, if you just talk about sort of shifting left or switching frameworks for automated tests or something like that, that in its own, from a enterprise sense or a big corporation sense, is minuscule. But when you put it into the context of what is happening, that can cause a lot of knock-on effect.
There's a thing, isn't there, with transformations that we often immediately go to, yeah, but there's probably problems that are going to happen, and we can roll our eyes and go, oh well, some named consultancies may have come in and sold some sort of a snake oil about a transformation will speed up deliveries or XYZ. And these things do happen. But there are also reasons why companies are looking for transformations. Sometimes you get stuck in that rut. Sometimes your culture's not necessarily toxic, but full of lethargy. There's a bit of malaise. You need that injection of something new. And sometimes that transformation idea is sold as something to change things. You said my buzzword for the week, Shey, so you've checked the context button, but it's so important to understand what has already happened before you then can look forwards to doing stuff. And I wonder, have we worked in places where we've actually been excited, invested, and actually seen successful things under the banner of transformation?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I have a little bit of a story time to draw from another area of my life. The sort of crux of one of the reasons why I wanted to do a little bit about this is I've seen it done badly. As I said, I used to get parachuted into these things, but one of the ones that was most interesting to me was I walked in to an absolute scene of carnage in the transformation. They'd been trying it for a year. They'd assigned a person who was unsuitable for it. And then he went out and he got in XYZ consultancy, who promised the world, transformed everybody according to them, and then walked off into the distance. And those who know me will know what that organization is. And everybody was walking around like dumbstruck, as if they'd been somebody just pulled the rug from under them. They didn't know what to do because they'd been agiled in this way, and then they were told to carry on regardless, and just left to their own thing. Now, what happened to that person who was heading it up was he was fired. Now, he was in the organization for over 10 years, and they just gave him this thing and said, transform us. And because he didn't, he got fired. I came into this carnage as they were at the end of it, and another guy came in, and he went to the owners of this company, and it was still privately owned, and said, it's going to cost you an absolute ball aching amount of money. It is going to take 2 years. But what I will do is I'll take you from here to here, and I'll give you an update every quarter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around to all the workforce, and I'm going to do the same with them. I'm going to say, I'm taking you here to there, and every quarter we're all going to chat about it. And we're going to go from monolith to microservices, and we're going to take the smallest thread from this monolith, make it a microservice, and then from that, we're going to spawn more sprint teams, more product teams, etc., etc. We're going to clone that, and we're going to make it a success. But I am going to keep you informed every step of the way. And he did. He was true to his word. It cost a ball-aching amount of money, but he did exactly what he said he would do. And at the end of 2 years, I can tell you right now that that microservice that he made was cloned and cloned and cloned again. That process, that team, we split, oh man, it was fantastic. It was super cool to be part of. And you know what? That is one of the glowing successes in my mind about how it can be done right. But you know what it needs at the top? It needs the guy. It needs the person with the plan, the vision, and the permission to make it a success.
Yeah. The successes I've seen are not dissimilar in many ways, which was it's taken a small group and almost demonstrated what they want to achieve with lots of support, coaching, nurturing, for want of a better word, and then scaled it, increased it, used the patterns, shared it, got the team to work with other people, almost like exponentially grew it, if that makes sense. Like 1 team, 2 teams, 4 teams, 8 teams, 16 teams, 32 teams, and taking the ones on when they can. And a lot of it was building, like users said there, it was like moving complete architecture. So a lot of it had to be rebuilt. So it wasn't as if trying to convert, let's say, I don't know, a virtual server or a virtual kind of mainframe system into kind of microservices. They had to know, they rebuilt it. There wasn't an attempt to try and unpick an existing system. It was, right, well, this thing doesn't quite work that well. Let's invest. and I've forgotten the actual pattern that they were using, but they took parts of the application apart and built that bit. So let's say it was a search functionality that became the microservice, and then they plugged it into the app. So they slowly picked apart the applications, and that allowed them to do different parts rapidly. It allowed them to use similar patterns. It allowed them to scale. It allowed them to set precedents, because they also said, as we're doing this, we will build the collateral, we will build the exemplars, we will build things, and we gave them the capacity and time to do that, not just to go 1,002 miles an hour towards getting a new service out the door. So we actually gave them time into the building the culture, for want of a better word, of repeat, reuse, and things like that. And actually, it was slow. Then this was about 3 years. But in that 3 years, a large chunk of a very big organization actually started following similar patterns, started behaving better. Some of it couldn't change, but we got testing, engineering, product, all working much more agile, much better, and looking at things differently. Treating quality as a first-class citizen is a classic one. Treating security is important. Treating downtime and all these things is kind of a completely different model of working. It took time, and different parts of it went to different paces. But that was ultimately successful, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in order to transform successfully, you also need time and support and not rush it. Because the last thing you can do is have an idea and just rush it through, not really think about the consequences. And again, it goes back to bringing people along. If people are suddenly forced into this change without seeing the consequences or seeing the incremental parts of it, then they can very quickly lose sight or lose confidence, and even the company can lose confidence. And this is often where things fail, is because things try and be done too quickly. There isn't a clear vision. It's just not managed properly. It's not communicated properly. People are lost in the change and not knowing exactly where the actual process is. And all your success stories are exactly what we've said, is giving them a vision. What are we actually aiming for? What are we planning to do? And it's going to be over this time frame. So therefore, people can have those incremental changes. So many people prefer those incremental changes. If you think about what's happened in life, and if you think about sort of cars, there have been incremental changes throughout the history of cars, or many years that I've been driving. You know, the shape has improved. You've now got automatic braking system, and a lot of it is automated, and which is sort of a precursor for us to be able to be autonomous driving. But in my mind, it hasn't really changed. It's just been incremental. And so therefore I can then embrace those changes and get more used to the ease of driving the car rather than having to change the gears or whatever. And that's what's important. It's that incremental change. I'm a great believer in evolution rather than revolution in terms of transformation, because I know that the Big Bang can change and is important in certain things, especially if you're really hitting the, almost hitting the buffers. You need to change quickly. But for the vast majority of the times, incremental changes, bringing people along, having that constant message, allowing people to talk about it and accept those changes is far more important.
Ultimately, transformation is generally trying to transform culture. There may be some tooling in it, there may be some process that changes in it, but the one thing that's core to all of it is the culture, the people. And it doesn't matter what tools you use, it doesn't matter what processes you use. If the people don't get it, can't use them correctly, it doesn't work. So cultural change takes time. It takes showing, demonstration of it. The only time I've seen it not work in that way was COVID, where organizations had to pivot. So they forced them to make incredibly hard choices. Places I've worked completely stopped lots of their culture in terms of approval processes and all the rest of it to be able to do things rapidly. They basically got lean really, really, really quick to get something out the door. What I saw there, though, because it was a rapid, soon as COVID faded away, they put back in the cultural processes that they knew and loved. Because even though they could see that they were more efficient, they could see they were faster, they could see they were better, they went back to their safe place.
Yeah, it's interesting that. I mean, COVID was the ultimate transformation, wasn't it? It was enforced, it was quick, it was sharp, and it was dirty. And yeah, we are seeing that going back, because to yours and David's points, you have to win the people. You have to then incrementally embed the processes. It's not hardware, it's not software, it's always about the meatware. And this is the thing. If you don't win hearts and minds, nothing is going to transform, is it?
I think a good example from the COVID time is sort of hybrid working. Everyone had to work from home. Everyone had to work remotely. And then once COVID has died, companies don't quite know exactly what's happening with hybrid working. Do we allow people to work from home all the time? Do we insist that people come in certain days of the week or a number of days a week? Or do we insist they come into the work all the time? I think that particular aspect of transformation companies have really struggled with. I don't think there's a consistent approach. I don't think it's really hit the mark in lots of companies because it's really tricky.
Do you think some of that's come from the fact that when we've talked about successful, long-lasting transformations, they've had a vision, they've had a buy-in, and they've had people slowly coming around. We've had chance to try things out, prove things, experiment, and do those pieces. And often that has been a top-down thing, but successfully disseminated amongst teams because they've actually iterated and learned and maybe had some good folks come in to help them do that. Whereas the COVID transformation was one that was forced upon companies and nobody had control. Transformation is an intentional thing. And because COVID forcing the way that we worked and the way that we operated wasn't an intentional thing, it feels like folks need to be able to get back to that last save in the game when they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Get back to a known safe point where they understand all parameters, and then from there go forward. And that means in lots of cases, companies have taken vast steps backwards, and others have taken a step back and go, right, well, we have learned, we've reduced the size of offices, we've embraced hybrid working and stuff. But it's meant that we've probably seen a real clash of two different types of transformation at the same time. I think a lot of people who maybe thought that this most recent COVID transformation change to their way of working was permanent probably are the ones who have found it hardest. And it comes back again to the fact that they weren't involved in that focus and in that drive and that decision. I guess thinking about what that really looks like, therefore, is what tips would you give to people who were looking at bringing transformation into the company? What questions should you be asking? Bring your critical thoughts to the table. How would you make sure that you're bringing the right things in for the right reasons intentionally? And we talked a little bit about the success of how we implement it iteratively, but how do we even know what we need to change and why?
I mean, I think the biggest one is like, where is the pain happening? From my point of view at the moment with the company I'm in, we're looking at a very competitive market where we're looking at some changes. We're an enterprise, so there are a bajillion moving parts. Some of the areas that I think we need to change are how we deal with outside forces, so people who provide software to us, how we deal with internal forces, so some of the processes that have been done for multiple tens of years, things like that. And I think that, you know, when you look internally and externally, there's and you start seeing a load of pain points where, yeah, the people who are there have been through it and are still there because they've drunk the Kool-Aid and they believe in it and they work hard on keeping the La Machine working. But the people who are looking around and sort of going, you know what, I know this can be done better. If there's when there gets enough voices, I think, you know, and it's anecdotal in my case, but when there are enough people that turn around to, you know, you're hearing in the lunchroom going, we could do this better. I think, you know, that's kind of almost a trigger to go, all right, let's hit the big red button and go.
It's hard to know to transform. It's easy to know to change, I guess is the point. And changes because of friction, changes because of problems, changes because of competitors doing things differently, being able to do things that you can't do. And it's understanding that value and what it is. How you get there, we talked a little bit about iteratively and journey and so on, but there's still the what you change. You know, we haven't gone into that because that does depend what you're trying to goal is. So I think it is about trying to visualize, verbalize, demonstrate the value and understand what you're trying to get to. And, you know, that could be being more adaptable, more resilient. And it's some of those things. But those are lovely words at a strategic level on a lovely word cloud. But then it's translating that into actual reality for people. What does this mean? How will your customers find resilience? What difference will it make to their lives? And actually starting to make it much more visceral, I think, for people, so that actually they can buy into your goals. Like we talk about testing and quality a lot. Why does that matter? And if we can't articulate that, then we struggle to articulate the value where this thing comes in. And with transformation, with change, you've got to be able to talk about the whys, the what's, the value that come out of it. I find certainly when I've worked with product people, the good ones are fantastic at helping do this sort of work, visualizing it and kind of articulating it and taking it away from what people like myself like to do sometimes, just solve a problem, taking it back to why I'm trying to solve the thing. If you get that nailed, you've got half the journey.
Yeah, but I think, one thing that strikes me is we're talking as people from a quality engineering, quality assurance testing point of view. It's one of the messages I'm giving to my team at the moment is, you know what? We are change agents. We are people who live within change. So if a transformation happens in your organization, you of all people should be the first person to stand up and say, yes, let me help you with that. I understand change. The problem is a lot of people within our organization, within our area in organizations, they don't realize they're within change. Everything they do is change. If you find a defect, what you are doing is affecting change. So you kind of have to extrapolate that out and understand that change is you, and you are the one who can affect it. I've been so fortunate in my years so far. It's like I've done things from testing a mobile app to quite literally going into an entire building and ensuring that the people who come in there next can open up their laptops successfully and not bring the company down. Those two things are exactly the same, but they're so different. But they are changes to the organization. You've got to understand that change happens, and change is important, but also change is necessary for the survival of your company, and you have to be able to work within that. Communication is key, but also communication from the top, but communication from the shop floor, and that's where we come in. That's where our teams come in and need to work really hard to help with that process. And then we'll succeed, and then we'll be the glory hounds that any of us want to be.
Right. I think I'm going to have to wrap this up here. It's highlighted to us, I think, a little bit about how there's different threads to transformation that probably we can explore in more separate, narrower, targeted podcasts, I think. And I think it's a really important topic because it is something that happens around us. And it goes to your point, Shey, there, of change. Change is something that happens. Transformation is one of those types of changes. It's a label given to a type of change. So thank you for listening to Testing Peers. Thank you to Enfocus, our sponsors. We really, really do appreciate you. If you do like to reach out to us, please do so. You can reach us at contactus@testingpeers.com. You can find us on our website as well if you want to do a contact us form. You'll also have the opportunity to kind of check out our conference at testingpeerscon.com. Just to confuse you, we should be announcing the agenda hopefully sometime soon. So fingers crossed that'll be out there with you, but keep an eye out and obviously feel free to purchase tickets at a very reasonable price. So thank you once again for joining us. Thank you to our guests, Shey, Chris, David, and myself.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure, as always.
For now, it's goodbye from the Testing Peers.
Goodbye.